Latest power rankings, not so friendly to your Lions.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's good, everybody? Matt Dery with you. It is a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on this Tuesday, December 9th into Wednesday, December 10th. Thank you for making us your first listen, everybody, and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to our everyday listeners that are out there that either watch the podcast on our YouTube channel or listen to us wherever. We appreciate all of you. Do not forget, our brand new Everydayers Club has been launched. If you go to lockedonlions.supercast.com, you'll get more information. I'll tell you more about that coming up momentarily. Got to give some love to our friend Colleen Myers, huge Lions fan, is retiring after many years at NTech Staffing in Troy. We love you, Colleen. Huge, huge Lions fan. They had a Lions retirement party for her today. Locked On Lions brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets or NFL live bets all season long. Coming up on the program today, Dave Birkett will join us from the Free Press. Lions longtime beat writer, does a great job at the Free. Dave, of course, also an accomplished author, has been covering this team for a long time. Love Dave on momentarily. It is the Stafford Bowl. We will get into that. I got to talk a little bit about Miles Frazier and his opportunity that he's getting to maybe get some more playing time coming up this weekend. But we got to start, first off, apologize for the voice. I'm like fighting off a cough, cold combination. So bear with me here with the voice. Travis Rogers, by the way, Locked On Rams, will join us Thursday for the crossover. All right, let's get to business here. Lions and Rams on Sunday in LA at SoFi. Huge game for Detroit. If you watched the game last night at SoFi, you saw the Philadelphia Eagles just look sloppy with 5 turnovers, fall at LA to the Chargers. Eagles are a mess at 8-5. So if they somehow fade, that could help the Lions' chances. And who knows? We could have 3 teams in the playoffs from the NFC North. Now, again, a lot has to go with other teams, and I know Philly's kind of comfortably in front of in the NFC East right now. But, man, the Eagles just do not look the part at the moment of a team that has their bleep together. But the latest NFL power rankings from ESPN, your Detroit Lions, who have been kind of a top 10 team for the last couple of years, second straight week are not in the top 10. They are 11th in the ESPN latest power rankings. Rams, who the Lions will face this Sunday, are number 1 at 10-3. New England is number 2 at 11-2, followed by Seattle, Denver, Green Bay, Buffalo, San Francisco, Jacksonville, who all of a sudden has moved up 5 spots from 13 to 8. Philly, who drops from 6 to 9 after last night's loss. Bears at 10, touchdown Bears. And Lions at 11. Houston follows Detroit at 12, followed by the Chargers, Steelers, and Cowboys. The Detroit Lions out of the top 10. The Detroit Lions sitting at number 11, where they were last week, despite their win over the Dallas Cowboys. And I told you this yesterday, and I know I got some grief from some of you, and I don't really blame you from my yesterday's rant about it. It wasn't really a rant, but I said it. I mean, if you watch the game Sunday evening, Green Bay and Chicago, those 2 teams just look better than the Lions. Eye test tells me, and look, I'm no Caleb Williams fan, and I'll take Jared Goff over Caleb Williams. All right, he seems to be playing backyard football there, but those 2 teams looked really competitive. Those 2 teams looked really consistent. Those 2 teams looked really, really good up front. And what have we talked about all year with the Lions? Pass rush was great against Dallas, but weeks before against Green Bay and the Giants, they were a no-show. D-line got pushed around against the Giants and Green Bay. Offensive line, we've talked about the inconsistency there. All right, so while I still think this Lions team can make a run and are still right there for a postseason berth, I believe Chicago being ahead of Detroit and Green Bay being ahead of Detroit. Both they're ahead of them anyway in the standings. When we talk about power rankings, we talk about where teams kind of stand. I don't disagree with any of it. The Lions haven't shown that they're a top 10 team yet. You look at these teams ahead of them. You look at Philly at 9. Are the Eagles that much better than the Lions? No, we saw the game head to head. Lions could have won that game. How much better are the Niners or the Jaguars, who have caught fire recently? Buffalo, which nearly lost at home to Cincinnati this weekend. Yes, the Packers swept the Lions and beat them up pretty good in week 1. And then the Thanksgiving Day game, Lions were in it. But, Seattle, I'm not shaking in my boots at any of these teams, but I'll say this. The Rams being at number 1, and we know how good they are in first quarters. We know how potent that offense is with Puka and with Devontae and Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, and Stafford's playing at a very high level. By the way, Matthew Stafford was on the Rich Eisen show yesterday and said this is just another game. Like Lions and Rams to him, now that they've played now they're playing for the 4th time, doesn't have as much juice for Stafford. A lot of respect for the Lions, he said, but it's he doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm playing my former team again. But this is a huge test for the Lions this week. This is the ultimate test. Because if they can somehow go out to LA where nobody's giving them a chance, all right, they're 5-point underdogs, according to our friends at FanDuel, and they can somehow win this game, that would be a huge statement for Detroit. And I'll tell you what, it would get them back into the top 10 of the power rankings. But they have to show that they can get pressure on Stafford. And I'm worried about facing this type of offense without Brian Branch. Lions, according to reports today, are bringing Arthur Mollett back, the defensive back who got a lot of playing time with all the injuries, then was let go a couple of weeks ago. Now he's being brought back to the active roster. As we know, the Lions looking for any kind of help in their secondary right now with all of the injuries that they have there. So we'll have to see about that. Before we get to Dave Birkett and talk to him from the Free Press, get his thoughts on everything that's going on with this football team. Dan Campbell was on with 97.1 The Ticket this morning on the morning show, does his usual Tuesday hit. And he was asked about the guard rotation for this week at left guard, where you had Tristan Colon start last week's game, but the rookie 5th-round pick from LSU, Miles Frazier, did get some burn, got some time in his first game back from injury, and I thought played pretty well. PFF thought he was bad and graded him at a 28, which is really, really low. But the tape that I watched, and when I was watching Miles Frazier, I thought he played pretty well. Campbell said today to Acosta and Jansen, quote, "I'd like to play Frazier a little bit again, but I like Cologne. There's things that can be cleaned up, but Cologne did some good things too." Those reps, more quotes, those reps for Frazier will be invaluable for him, and he's going to have to learn from them, and we believe he will. We believe he'll memory bank those and get a little bit better. I'd like to see him get in this game, get him a couple more reps, let him grow, but I see us using Cologne too, end quote. Coyote Awashika, who's been playing for Christian Mahogany, who's been hurt, will try to practice this week, but it's unclear if he will play. Can I just say something here? Please, just put Miles Frazier out there and let him play. It's not like he's on an island playing left tackle or right tackle. It has to be Taylor Decker or Penei Sewell. Miles Frazier's a big dude, and there's a reason why Brad Holmes drafted him in the 5th round. They like him. Tristan Colon, God bless him, good veteran player. But let's start Frazier and see how he does. Now, I know the Rams front is excellent, and if Frazier can't handle it and he's getting toasted, then you put Cologne in the game. But I want to see Miles Frazier. Let's let him play. He could be the future at one of these guard spots, because come next year, I think they're going to try Ratledge at center again and keep him there. I think they're going to have a right guard opening. Look, they could draft a center. They could draft a guard. I could be wrong. But let's just see Miles Frazier. Tristan Colon is a veteran backup. Frazier has the potential here. Let's see him. That's what I would like to see. All right. We mentioned it before. We're going to get to Dave Birkett coming up momentarily, but we want to thank you for making Locked On Lions your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live for your team, right? Every day. Now we take it up a level and go ad free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Lions with no interruptions, members only Discord access. I'm on the Discord. I can chat with you and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonlions.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays just move fast, right? One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump right into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. We told you before, FanDuel has the Rams as a 4.5-point favorite. It keeps going back and forth between 4.5 and 5 for Sunday over the Lions. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, folks, as promised, joining us now here on Locked On Lions. It's a Tuesday edition. Our friend Dave Birkett from the Free Press in his car right now. This is dedication as a dad, coaching his son, making sure his daughter's ready for her basketball game tonight. Dave, you're always on the move, my friend.
You know how it is, Matt. There's life things that pop up, and I always seem to get these things whenever I try to do multiple things. But hey, man, love joining you. Happy to do it. You do a great job. So glad to be on the podcast here.
Great to be with you, buddy. So the Lions. So Arthur Mollett is back, and Ross Dwelly was waived. I mean, who's going to start at tight end? I mean, we might as well get like Nolan Bianchi or Colton or one of those guys out there.
Do I not look like a tight end to you? Is that
no? You don't.
No. Okay. Maybe I can fill in at wide receiver. I don't know.
Yes.
Defensive back. Now look, I mean, they're in a bind at tight end, right? It's something where you lose Sam Laporta, one of the better tight ends in the game. You lose Brock Wright, your blocking option. Like all of a sudden, you're down to your third, fourth, fifth tight ends. I don't know that it matters a whole heck of a lot. Dan Skipper has been playing quite a bit as the sixth lineman of late, and that's probably the way the Lions keep going. But maybe they bring Ross back. I don't think any of those backup tight ends that they've used has been great when it comes to some of the blocking assignments, and that's really what they need as much as anything out of that position right now, because the offense, of course, is going to come from Jahmyr Gibbs and Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown and those guys.
Tell me about, I brought up earlier before you came on about Miles Frazier. I just want to see the kid play. Dan Campbell was on the radio this morning saying, hey, we're still going to try to get him in. Cologne's okay too. But are you at the point where it's like, let's just see what the rookie can do?
So, last week, obviously, when they were rotating guards, my first instinct was that, like, they pulled Tristan, Cologne, like he didn't play well in those first two series, and they were just going to let Frazier roll with it. And then all of a sudden, it turns into a guard rotation. And I think ordinarily I would be against the guard rotation. We've seen that not work out before under the Matt Patricia era Lions, as you know. But, the more I think about it, like, Frazier, it's best to put him in, give him, piecemeal him reps, right? Let him play a little bit, see what he can do, get him ready in case they need him to play a major role. Dan Campbell said this week that, he wants to get Miles some more playing time. I don't know if that means start. I don't know if Coyote Wasika will be back. By the sounds of it, he might not be ready. So, your best option might be to rotate those guys until Christian Mahogany gets back here in another week or two.
Dave Birkett with us from the Free Press, a longtime Lions beat. How many years is this now for you on the beat? I lost track.
Me too. Maybe 15 at the Free Press. And if it's anything more than that, I'm not going to cop to it, because that just makes me sound older than I am.
Oh, man. Those guys in the media room, I've seen they'll post some videos, and they always just kind of poke fun at you because you don't play along. I love that. You're kind of the old curmudgeon now in there.
Yeah, it's not that I don't play along. It's just that, again, given what's going on in my life with kids, like I'm in there trying to work and get out. And so they, they don't have those responsibilities yet. And so, I love it though. So for people who don't know, right, there's a little back media room there, and that's kind of where I sit and a couple of the guys sit, and they've moved there here in the last year or two. Most people sat out in the sort of the press conference area. But they keep me young, and now that I got company back there, it's good that when I'm not working, or when I take the headphones off and stop writing, I can turn around and at least have goof around with them a little bit.
You look at this team, Dave, obviously a big game on Sunday, and that would tell a lot if they could somehow go in there and win. But do you kind of view them, after watching Green Bay and Chicago, as the third best team in the division right now, or do you think they can make a run and overtake those two teams?
Yeah, I don't think they're the third best team. I think they're probably 1B, right up there with Green Bay. They've lost twice to the Packers, so maybe they're the second best team in the division. But the reality is like the Bears, look, they beat the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles are a very good team. I don't know how much you've watched them the last couple of weeks, but they don't strike me as being very good. The Lions still beat the Bears pretty handily that first meeting, and I think Chicago is probably better than what we saw, when they came to Ford Field. But look, that the playoff spot might come down to Week 18 and how the Lions do, at Soldier Field. And as I look at things right now, I think that's a game the Lions win. So I would put them behind Green Bay, ahead of Chicago, but I think it's a pretty balanced division. I think all those teams are pretty decent teams. I just think, the quarterback play, the overall, maybe, I don't know, balance of the Packers, his offensively and defensively gives them a notch above the other two. And then, give me Jared Goff over Caleb Williams at this stage of their careers.
How big were those last few days off, playing Thursday, now getting a little bit of a break before they go to LA, you think?
Yeah, it's going to help. I mean, we saw last year, the Lions had this same sort of break. And, when you get one of these late in the season, it should help you refresh and be ready for, what lies ahead. Although, it didn't, provide the benefits that maybe we thought last year when they lost in the playoffs. But Lions actually have two of these sort of extra, weeks of rest with this week, and then Christmas. They obviously play on a short week that week, so they'll have a couple extra days afterwards. So I think it's beneficial. But the flip side of that, Matt, is the Lions haven't won very often off these, at least of late, off these extended or shortened buys, I guess I should say, right, where they coming into the season, week one, you have a little bit extra rest before that game. They lose that game, right? Coming off the bye this year, they lose that game. Even off this extra rest last year, I think that was the Bills game off the extra rest that they lost. So things haven't gone swimmingly for the Lions with some of these short rest games that they've had. And in that regard, I'd like to see them get things, I don't know exactly what it is or what the solution is, but I'd like to see them get things sort of straightened out when it comes to that.
Loved your piece this week with Taylor Decker. It was a nice little exclusive there. And he kind of left the door open. He said, look, I still love playing, but this year's been hard.
Right.
But contemplating retirement, obviously they've been through this recently with Frank Ragnow, but did you get a sense that, is it 60-40 he's coming back next year? Is it 60-40 retires? How do you view it?
I think he truly doesn't know. I think just in talking to him, I mean, the conversation was so winding where he was going through the pluses, the minuses of playing, the sort of, and he said he hasn't really considered it yet, but he went pretty deep and of all the things that he has to really consider, the injuries and the toll they've taken on his body, the time he gets to spend or doesn't get to spend with his family, what it means to him to keep playing. Just to be clear, he said he wants to, he'd like to, ideally he'd like to keep playing, but it's not as simple as that this season hasn't been a fun one for him because of the injuries, that as his family's getting older, it's, it's tougher to leave the kids. I totally get that. I feel that myself. So I don't think he knows. I think he will truly sit down after this season. I asked him even, what is the process that you'll go through? Will you talk to your wife? Will you, sit down with the coaches, with people who've retired? And he said, I don't know. Like, I haven't got that far. So I truly don't think he's ready to make a decision yet. But, if it's not this year, it's going to be relatively soon. And the Lions got caught a little bit not being ready for the Frank Ragnow retirement. And you'd like to think, I know they tried with Gio Manu, but you'd like to think that maybe they're a little more proactive in making sure that they're prepared for whenever Taylor does decide to step away.
It's a great point. Dave Birkett with us from the Free Press. I don't think a lot's going to be made of Stafford v. Goff part 4 here, but how do you view this game this weekend, and how concerned are you that because this offense in LA is so good and the Lions don't have Brian Branch, it could be a long day for the defense?
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, and if Kirby Joseph plays or doesn't play, I mean, if Kirby's out there, I see Stafford and McVay maybe trying to make him run. That his knee's not in great shape. You can run some guys deep, and Kirby's got to cover that. And there's a lot you can do to sort of stress that knee. So I don't think that's a great matchup for the Lions. I mean, we're gonna have to see how much the Lions can. Jahmyr Gibbs is on such a heater here. He's such a good player, and obviously, he's a guy that the Lions can use to maybe control the game a little bit. You'd like to think that they try to do that, keep that Rams offense off the field. But if you get into a shootout, or if you get into a passing game, at least the Rams have a really good pass rush too. That defense is I think that's the best overall team in the league, and it's probably a top 5 or 10 defense. So there aren't many weaknesses on that Rams team. It's a game that the Lions can absolutely win, but I'd be hard pressed to pick them right now. I think I'd give the Rams a little bit of an edge, and if the Lions happen to lose that of course puts them in a tough spot again when it comes to making the playoffs.
But it sounds like, looking at it, all right, let's say they do lose. Bears play the Browns this week.
Right.
They're not losing that game. But it just kind of lines up with how Chicago's schedule is. And if the Lions should handle Pittsburgh and Minnesota, they should beat both those teams. Yep. I know Pittsburgh's in first place, but come on. Eye test, if you watched them against Baltimore the other day, it was not a pretty game. Like you said, if it comes down to week 18, my God, that would just be unreal, wouldn't it?
I mean, last game of the season potentially again, right, in the NFL, and I would think it's one of those really enticing made for TV matchups. Ben Johnson against Dan Campbell, old coordinator against his old team, and one team goes and the other team, is going home. And for the Bears, look, they play the Packers. I think, is it the 49ers after that? They've got a pretty tough schedule, so it could be a case where it's a win or go home game for Chicago. And even if Chicago happens to lose a couple games and they're out of this thing, like maybe for them at least, and for Ben, it's a situation where like the Lions against the Packers in 2022, where they can cement themselves as a team that will be on the rise for future seasons with a win over the Lions, or to spoil the Lions playoff hopes. So I think there'd be so many storylines with that last game. And as a writer, I wouldn't mind covering it. I don't know if it's quite going to get to that, but I certainly could see that one being game 262 or whatever it is.
Final thing, how would you grade Dan Campbell's play calling so far? Obviously, it's only been a handful of games, but what would you give it?
Yeah, no, I mean, Dan made the point when he took over the play calling, right, that he knows what he wants on offense. And when you lean on Jahmyr Gibbs, like the Lions have leaned on him, and, you feature Jameson Williams and, Amon-Ra still getting his touches when healthy, like that's what this offense should be. So I don't have many issues with the play calling. Lions have had a few game management issues in some of these games. I haven't minded the 4th down calls. I think I like when Dan does that. I know some people, don't like that. They're 0 for their last 7 still. They didn't attempt any last week. So I think there's still some things that, the Lions and Dan have to figure out if he's going to continue in this role going forward. But just in terms of the play calling itself, I've said this before, Matt, like, Ben to me was one of the best around, right? He's in that Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, that sort of tier of play callers. And so if you're going to go out and find someone, and this is not meant as any offense to John Morton, but it's a lot easier to find a John Morton than it is a Ben Johnson. And so if you're Dan, do you risk that again? Like, what are you turning it over to, or should you just keep it yourself? So I could see him keeping play calling going forward. And I guess I wouldn't totally mind it, though I do think there are a few of those game management things that he might need a little bit of assistance with if this is the plan 2026 and beyond.
They might also miss, and nobody talks about this, but you would know, they might miss John Dykema too. He was kind of an important guy. up there in the booth, you know?
No, that's a fair point because, for people who don't know, he handled, some of those game management things and when to throw challenges. And he was pretty dialed in. The Jaguars, went out and lured him away from Michigan State. He left the Lions initially to go to Michigan State. Jaguars lost a pretty good one, or a pretty well-respected one, I guess. And now Don Muhlbach is handling a lot of those duties for the Lions. This is his first year doing it. So I think that goes into this whole, Matt, sort of what we've talked about or known about this team all along, right? Some of the issues were going to be that offensive line and how was it, and that pass rush, do they have enough, and how some of those new faces at the coordinator positions hold up. Maybe you can throw, Don Muhlbach into that too. I don't know that there's any, anything super glaring that's cost this team games, but it's a learning process for everyone, I guess, is the point. And the more those guys stay in those roles, the better, in theory, they'll become at them.
Always great to catch up, Dave. Thanks so much.
You got it, Matt. We'll see you, man.
Dave Birkett with us from the Free Press. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at Mint Mobile. There's no reason to let big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the full Scrooge treatment. What makes this even better is how simple Mint makes the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. Switching to Mint lets you keep your same coverage for a lower price. Setup takes only a few minutes. You can bring your own phone and number without any issues. And the service is fast and super reliable, even on the go. Turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint Unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required. $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees, initial plan term only. 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. All right, we thank Dave Birkett for coming on with us from the Free Press. Just does such a great job covering the team. And as we talked about, kind of broke during the interview, Ross Dwelly, who is starting at tight end for the Lions the last handful of games with Brock Wright out and Sam Laporta already out. He's been waived today to make room for Arthur Mollett. So who knows who will be playing. Anthony Ferkser, could be Zach Horton. Lions, and the Lions have a couple of other tight ends that he just picked up last week as well. So it's been a wild roster management from Brad Holmes with all these injuries. But we're back again tomorrow with a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions. Travis Rogers on Thursday with a crossover. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcasts on a Tuesday. Locked On Lions.